and you're not completely dumbfounded and humbled and mind-fucked by the profundity of this quote-unquote answer, you haven't gotten it. That's how crazy the shit is. In a way, before awakening and afterwards, everything's the same. But everything's also simultaneously, profoundly, absolutely, utterly different. Can't be more different. If you were to put the Frank Tian character from like just a year ago to this quote-unquote Mitsu here and experience the world right now, he'll be like, what the fuck? This is, and then I'm gonna be like, oh, this is your most natural state, bro. And then he'll be like, what, am I tripping on 5-MeO DMT? Am I having a breakthrough? Not the visual kinds, because the visual still forms. I'm talking about the context that gives rise to form, which is again, absolute infinity. Nothingness. God, so obvious. My well-being, sense of well-being has been increased, my brain power, perceptual power. I feel like I microdose on every drug imaginable, just naturally. 90% less suffering. Even if your goal is to be a CEO or a bodybuilder, this awakening shit is worth it. Do it. I'm gonna offer you a more specific technique for total unification, cosmic consciousness. So if you practice mindfulness, you are focusing on an object of meditation, and that object could be the breath, it could be sight, it could be sound, it could be thoughts, it could be emotions, it could be a picture of a deity, it doesn't even matter. Once you have enough focus and concentration or one-pointedness or samadhi, any more attempt to vipassanalyze the sensations or the object of meditation could actually make you go backwards or make you get stuck. Now what you have to do is just relax, surrender, and do nothing. And then that one-pointedness, that samadhi, to the one single point of the object of meditation would start to be transferred and transformed into a field of infinite space. So every particle within this field will automatically, without your help, connect themselves, because the mind would naturally be inclined to return to its natural state, to the source. That's the big daddy of all flow states. But that's not the end. Even if you feel like you're connected to the entire universe, if you're still feeling like a meditator in here, meditating to the entire universe over there, then that's not the final form of formlessness, because there's still a separation between the meditator and meditated. You have to extrapolate the meditator and turn it into just another object of meditation that's no different from any other sensations or objects of meditation. Once you do that, there's going to be a total unity, one-to-one unity between the perceiver and the perceived. So the subject and the object are occupying, so to speak, at the exact same space-time with no distance at all. You realize that that is the core of being. You can't go deeper than that. Actually, depth is not even the right word for it, because again, infinity transcends distance and layers. Keep in mind that the unification is there already since the beginning of time. It's your mind that's creating the separation. It's the limit of the imagination that's creating that distance, that duality between you and the universe. Anytime you have a thought, that's why you can't imagine this. The imagination is actually a process of condensing or collapsing infinity, the formlessness of infinity, into a finite form that you come to identify as you. So in some sense, you're literally one thought away from having a glimpse of absolute infinity or having an enlightenment experience. But anyway, you still need to practice to get there. People that just get it like that, it happens. That's why you hear those fables in Zen literature. But it still requires high degrees of concentration, power, clarity, and equanimity to be able to hold that state and make it your default or its natural state, moment to moment.
The mind, the sense of self, is no longer confined inside the Mitsu. Awareness doesn't even need the character's help to be aware. It's always already totally awake, by itself, as itself, of itself. experience feels like a boundless, infinite hologram reflecting on itself. Awareness penetrates through everything and looping back on itself through and through the body-mind, which is also holographic.
Okay, so another way to get to the core of this, to get to the core of reality, quote-unquote reality, is through this method called self-inquiry. It's the ultimate koan. Who am I? Or the better way to phrase this is, what am I? That's the ultimate question, right? That's the ultimate question for anyone. Who am I? He said that he felt like his thoughts were hijacked, that he didn't feel like his thoughts were his. So he asked me, whose thoughts are those if they're not mine? The answer is pretty obvious, if you got it. That question is the same from the matter of direct experience as asking, to whom does the cloud and the sky and the cars and the houses belong to? They arise in the same space, quote unquote space. Again, infinity transcends time and space. Same quote unquote space, for lack of a better word. They rise in the same space as anything else that you perceive, your thoughts. But since that space is utterly and completely empty, it's a total nothing, that's everything. It's infinity itself, quote unquote Godhead. But I don't want to slap too many labels on it because that's just going to further confuse you. It's the same space, right? So that space belongs to no one because he has no attributes and no qualities. He has no locations. Before, when I heard about this method, popularized by Indian sages like Ramana Maharshi, you inquire into the nature of self and of reality. So at first when I heard about this method, I was like, what the fuck? This is such a stupid question. How would this question lead me to enlightenment? Of course I know who am I. Of course I know. I'm Frank Yang. See, that's the insight your mind conjure up. And then if you say, okay, I'm not Frank Yang because I read a little bit of spiritual mumbo jumbo textbook, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. So, I'm reality, I'm the universe. See, any word, any concept, any labels, any answers are generated by the mind is not it. And this process of getting to a sort of this point where your mind just sort of stands still and becomes silent is a pretty long process, because you got to go through all those different names and identifications and categories and attributes and qualities that you are assigning to your sense of identity throughout your whole life. You have to like peel them off layer by layer to get to the point of silence. And when I first started doing inquiry, when I got to the point where there was just silence, I was like, man, maybe I got it. I was like, who am I? So I waited for an answer. Okay, everything that the mind can generate is not it. Okay, now just silence and stillness. I got it. No, I haven't gotten it. Because if there's still a delay between the question and the answer, the question, what am I? The answer, silence. No, my mind has nothing. That's still not it, because there's still a delay between the question and the answer. That still presupposes that there's a separation between you and the universe, between you and reality. There's still a distinction between the subject and object. Even if the delay is 1 nanosecond, then you still operate within that paradigm where there's still a subtle stream of consciousness. There's no stream, there's no mirror. None of that. You are directly plugged into the source right now. But your lens of perception hasn't been tested. So if you really got it, there should be no delay at all. The answer and the question arise simultaneously in the non-location of infinity. Ultimately, there is no correct answer. So the moment that you can't find yourself, you found yourself. Fucking God. Seriously, how fucked up is it that you think you know who you are and what you are your entire life, but when you really try to find it, try to inquire, and do it, the direct experience, you can't find it, but fucking self-aware. So whatever is looking out through those eyes right now, Zen Koan, what your face looked like before your grandparents were born, that's the face. It's the same looking that's been looking since I was 3 till now. This avatar changed a whole lot. I went through like 20 million different walking cuts, but that looking is still the same. So whatever it is changing cannot be true. Whatever is not true at this present moment right now, this is infinity, eternal and permanent, is not the truth. And Frank Yang, not just himself, but his entire life, all the things that happened were merely the product of the imagination that arise spontaneously through the empty space of the Godhead. Again, whatever is looking out through those eyes right now is not a person, not a biological entity. It's nothing. It's infinity itself, quote-unquote Godhead. It's not even a nothing because nothing is still a label. See how tricky this thing is? But somehow, some way, in the most mindfuckery way possible, it's self-aware. And because he has no location, it's not inside your head. Your awareness, consciousness, or yourself, quote-unquote true self, is not inside your head. Your head, your body, your mind, everything's inside it. But there's no inside and outside at the end. That's what I mean? This is so fucked up. It's all pervasive and omniscient. There's no location, no size, no dimensions, no shape, no form, no smell, no distance, no quality. There's nothing that could be conceived of in the realm of the imagination or thought that could even come close to describing this thing. It's your fucking true self. See, enlightenment is not even an experience. It's not a state that changes. It's the prior condition in which all your experiences arise and pass into. But the character or the mind will produce a kind of experience like bliss to deal with such a deep realization. But that's a byproduct. And if you think you figured it out, if you got it, if you whirl in your sense of self, your entire mind isn't just completely shattered to the point where it doesn't exist, you haven't gotten it. That's how crazy this shit is. Epilogue! Now this is the most important point that most people who got really high in their spiritual pursuits still don't get. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. I've repeated this like a million times. If you really discover your true self as nothing, everything is you, but nothing is you. If infinity doesn't include paradoxes and contradictions, it's not infinite, is it? The world alone is Brahman. Here, this is it. Your mind might start to conjure up some questions and assumptions and skepticisms. How do you know? Well, if you are part of reality, no separation, let me just put it this way. Of course, it can know itself thoroughly and directly. More direct than direct. Closer than close. This realization. This truth. Because it is itself! Of course it can know itself! It's so obvious. Of course consciousness can be directly conscious of itself because it is nothing but itself! Even the stage that Leo talks about, the God realization phase, there's more to the picture. Because I've abided in that stage permanently for over a year and a half, until even that starts to dissolve and you move on to something even better and freer. You will not believe it because that is the pinnacle of spirituality and spiritual experiences, of mystical states. But like I said, everybody wants to be a spiritual cunt, but very few people want to go all the way. Now, there's a constant difference between temporarily transcending the self through psychedelics and meditation versus a permanent dropping away of the self. The former is an experience, the latter is not an experience. Now, if you're into spiral dynamics, this video is going to be about the stages of turquoise and even beyond that. See, everything before turquoise is the ego. But after turquoise, there are no stages to enlightenment, but there are stages to awakenings and experiences that ultimately leads towards it. See, all states of consciousness belongs to the dream state. Okay, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to hear about this any of the spirituality videos that you see on YouTube. The egoic state, the separated state, is an altered state of consciousness. Now, all the mystical experiences, no matter how superhuman or divine, are still altered state of consciousness. Now, the natural state, 490 state, is the unaltered state of consciousness. I'm going to tell you how to get here, just be patient. Now, again, there's a huge difference between you as a separate entity experiencing the divine versus divinity recognizing itself. Reality penetrating itself so thoroughly that there's not a single particle of space or gap in your field of experience. It's this one seamless whole. There's a difference between that and the separate self experiencing God. Now, even before you finish the path, you can have a permanent shift. You can be walking around in Godhead with bliss. Permanently. Let's stick to the circle. Now that's even a stage above experiencing the psychedelics and then going back to the ego state. Okay? But still, before you completely finish the path, you're always going to project the sense of self onto it. So every stage of development, every jewel, every aspect of the multiplicity of that jewel is free. Okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm not making a hierarchy. Now you might say, what is the purpose of all these different stages and rounds? Well, to put it very simply, again, they're just a byproduct of the solution of the self. And once the self is solute, you get a bigger opening. That's it. And then first you abide and identify with consciousness, awareness, and witness, so you can witness the ego and dissolve the separate self even more. And then you go into God consciousness, so you can dissolve even that. And you dissolve even God and you go into nothingness. But if you craft a new identity out of them, you're just piling on more conditioning, so you're going backwards, and it's hard to go backwards, but people get stuck, and then they create more separations. That's why you see those people who hasn't gone all the way going around getting mad or telling people, hey man, don't you get it? Everything's consciousness, bro. Everything's love, everything's God. Once the self completely dissolves, even the bubble of consciousness or awareness is seen through as lenses of perception that also pop. There's no place for their functionality anymore. I mean, I'm having an experience, sure, but it will not occur to nature, this is consciousness. There's a huge difference there. Let's see, the only way to transcend whatever level that you're on is to make it disappear, absorb it, until it's so fully yours that you don't see it anymore. That's how you truly understand something. So I always say that to find the true self of no self, it's like an eyeball that can't see itself, but it sees everything else. You're not going to be able to experience or even see that quote-unquote no self. If you experience emptiness, that's not true no self. If you experience nothingness, that's not a true no self, right? Transcending the ego, dissolving the ego, that's awakening. Now, transcending even quote-unquote God consciousness is enlightenment. If transcending the self is like an eyeball that can't see itself, then transcending God consciousness is experiencing reality without a mirror. Only reflections. Because after a very deep awakening, your next step is to deconstruct even the background, the source. See, a lot of people still stand on the source with this eternal being where things are arising in and out of. But that's still a projection from the separate self. Without the separate self, there wouldn't be a source. Even Buddha mind, or Christ consciousness, Brahman, Atman, everything that you encounter on the spiritual path has to be disembedded, disidentified. See, spirituality must eventually be transcended. Spirituality is a program, just another program. It's a program that's used to dissolve all the previous programs, like the sex program, the CEO program, the bodybuilding program, the atheism program, the postmodernism program, the religious program, the pickup program. But to return to the natural state, spirituality itself must also self-destruct. Once you complete the path, like I said, everything's gonna disappear, but transcended and embodied. Let's say you talk about chakras. Once all your chakras open up, you're not going to experience chakras energy anymore. If you're still experiencing Kundalini awakening energies, that means your sense of self is still getting dissolved. You're still in the process of dissolving your conditions. Because what chakras are, what Kundalini awakening is nothing more than a byproduct of the solution of the separate self. All mystical experiences are the byproduct of the solution of separate self. If the egoic state is an altered state of consciousness, it's psychotic, it's insanity. All mystical experiences are also altered state of consciousness. The natural state is the unaltered state of consciousness, devoid of any lenses of perception. Even emptiness, God, they're all still perceptions. Okay. Now, the people who hasn't experienced the non-experience of the unaltered state of consciousness of that state, the full state, are always going to confuse enlightenment with altered state of consciousness, because they only have the egoic state and the altered state of consciousness, either on psychedelics or meditation, to compare their experience with. So they're always going to think, oh, they want more altered state of consciousness. But from the perspective of the 490 state, they're the same. Okay? Now the 490 state, now the experience of it feels like the combination of the ninth jhana, the highest attainment of the meditation, which is a cessation, where you completely truly disappear into the fabric of reality, and infinite consciousness, the sixth jhana. That's your moment-to-moment experience. It's really hard to explain, but you have to be nothing before you can be everything. See, before you truly recognize no self, before when every single particle is deconstructed so thoroughly that there's not even a single particle that you can say, to be you, you're just gonna relocate the rest of the solidity, no matter how tiny it is, within your separate entity, and you're gonna lash that onto whatever object that you perceive, because the subject has to be thoroughly seen through as being totally, utterly empty. That's why when people experience Godhead or having some kind of a mystical experience, they immediately say, hey, that's me. And that's the true self. Very tricky, very tricky.
Now, what exactly is a spiritual high or a mystical experience? It's when you get a glimpse of reality, and before you have completely dissolved the separation and condition of the self, you're going to respond to it. The character is going to respond to it in bliss, ecstasy, joy. That's your spiritual high. And if the character response is disgust, confusion, and depression, or nihilism, that's your dark night of the soul. They're exactly the same thing. And what happens when you have a glimpse, this opening, is that before you completely dissolve, you're going to lace your bullshit on top of it. Your shadows, your past experiences, everything you read in spirituality. And if you take this content to be the quote-unquote truth about ultimate reality, or identify with them, then you're in trouble, because instead you're actually piling up more conditionings.